Uso in Swahili, it means face. And it's the idea of like the identity. And, one of the things that I, really was fascinated by was, when my daughter was born, that, the question of who am I now kind of really kind of hit me. Because if Zao was this sort of, exploration of, who am I without a parent, my daughter being, or this Uso is going to be the sense of like, who am I now as a parent? And so that is essentially what Project Uso is. And the best way I can kind of describe it is that it is this single player isometric afro-gothic action RPG. This has always been part of the plan. The idea is essentially with Tales of Kenzera, with Zao, for example, the Book of Zao, this story about, the shaman, challenging the god of death and, kind of being as a way of like looking at the idea of healthily handling grief. I as an art piece, as a book, it's not necessarily going to, affect people all in the same way. And so, I came with the idea of like, what if, for example, one reader is inspired to kind of defy death itself? So they create this android, this Solost, which is fashioned to cradle the spirits of the dead. And what if, for example, that spirit isn't a human being, but it is the god Eshu, the Yoruba god Eshu, which is the god of chaos. So now you've got these two mentalities in this one frame. And really, that was something that I was like, oh, that would be really cool to explore in an RPG setting. The idea of the DM versus the player, but you're playing both in a weird way. Come. You will, one of the things that we wanted to really expand upon is this conflict within the self, within the idea of like, who are you really? And that, there's always conflicting questions of the choices that you make. And so if you've got these two sides in your mind, what would it look like rolling against yourself? So, you can build your stats in one space and build your stats in the other, knowing full well that you're going to be rolling against the other, the other side of yourself in time, which we're calling like a crucible check. And so this is, again, leaning into the constant questions that we keep asking ourselves and like looking and exploring at death in all its sort of facets and ideas. That's really where we wanted to jump into with this new game. As a team, Zao was all about building the team together and building that team, finding who, how we work with one another. And I've said this before, like 4 years of development, I'd say like 3 years of that development was figuring out, how we work together. And the 1 year was then just making Zao. And so we now know each other so well that we know what we want to build and what we're excited about and where we want to go next. And this is where we want to jump into. This is the sort of, RPG sort of world that, this almost action beat 'em up kind of, vibe. We're looking, we're massive fans of Planescape Torment, but also, big fans of like, Batman Arkham. So what happens when you mix those two and they have a baby? That's the world that we want to kind of bring to audiences. So yeah, man, like that's sort of what we're cooking, and we're just looking for the right partner for it. We're looking for someone who will allow us to explore that, to dive into that, to really bring that vision to life. So we're still, we've got we've got a prototype. Which again is something that is kind of giving an idea of a sense of like how it will feel. At very, very early phase. We're still, figuring out, bits here, there, and everywhere, what those supernatural abilities are going to look like, how, dialogue is going to play in this game, what that crucible check is going to look like. We're still very much in that inception sort of concepting, prototyping phase, It's, but it is about, again, as I say, like respecting the players' money and time, man. And, really kind of, we want to play with replayability, but also, again, be like, hey, you're not going to, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to do so. So, yeah, man, like that's, and the scale wise, like, for us, it isn't about like making something that is completely photorealistic, like, or, really, really huge. Like, we want to really focus our time and attention on the mechanics, on the gameplay, on the feel of it as a whole, because I think that's what's really key. That's what's going to make it really sing, And taking what we've learned from Zao and the idea of like, cool, we know how to tell story. Our combat was, pretty decent. and pretty fun, and the movement and elements of that, the aesthetics were really cool. Like, how do we level that up, especially taking player feedback, but also put it in a world like this, put it in an isometric, in an RPG, in an action RPG to a degree. Looking back at Zao, we didn't even have anything playable when we pitched to EA, and we had, but it got signed, right, and it got seen to. It was literally just on a pitch deck. Now it's like a different, it's a different beast. This the industry is playing at a different scale, and I don't know what it is, but it is almost like this the reaction from the boom of COVID, and just how people had all the time in the world to essentially play or watch content, or they're at home, to today where we are going outside and and like, and actually hanging out with friends and everything. But there is, and so I think there is this adjustment, and I think like that shaking of the foundations in a way is affecting everyone, and anyone. Like, I'm talking to developers who've been in this industry for 20, 30 odd years, who are not necessarily, who have never seen this kind of, this thing as well. Like, we're seeing a lot more kind of people making cautious games rather than bold ones. And I think like that's what we need. We need more bold games. We need more exciting games. But because of the way that the industry is at the moment and where everything is, everyone's just being really cautious. And I think like, yeah, it's very it's very bizarre. And again, I'm very new to this space, so this is kind of like I've entered into this space being like, is this normal? And like, but everyone's telling me it is. It really isn't, and that's it. It's because there is a shift, within the economics, within the sort of the games, sort of backbone as a whole, the industry as a whole. Yeah, well, this is it. Like, I think crowdfunding definitely is. It's a good way of gauging, kind of what people like and what people want. But then, we're in a space and a time, right, where there are so many crowdfunding models. There are so many things out there as well to put money towards. But also, we're in a cost of living crisis, man. And I guess it would also allow, audiences as well to kind of feel like, hey, yeah, we really want this. Like, let's go for it. But at the same time, I wouldn't blame someone saying, I'd love this idea, but I've got to put food on the table. Like, I haven't got the time, like, I haven't got the money today to do that. And that's the thing. I think this is why I feel like, especially when it comes to the people who make these decisions, it needs to be more on them to take the risk, on creatives, on the bold choices, rather than necessarily being cautious about it, and being kind of, careful about it. I think that was the beauty of the originals program. It was all about taking risk. It was all about championing, you know, creatives, because they got that FC money, like, you know what I mean. So it's like, they've got they've got the security and the backing and the strength of a vehicle that already works. So let's really push the artistic boundaries of what games are, and I think like that's what was great. We need more original programs. I feel like we're at a crossroads where we can either go, you'll either see games where they just kind of, it's a rinse and repeat of the same model that I feel has got us into this predicament and the situation that we're into now, or we enter into a space where, the industry evolves and becomes stronger. And I am a big believer that we can go down this route. We can grow stronger. And I think something that I'm really excited about and wanting to kind of explore and expand on is the lessons that I've learned from almost like the old way of kind of going through games and wanting to enter into a new way and kind of trying something different. And I think that's why I'm, sort of, with the team that we've got, so, now it's exciting to take the mistakes that we've gained, that we've learned from previously or made previously, and learning from them now. And I think like that's, why I'm really kind of pushing for this sense of like, yeah, we just got to find the right creative partner on it, and kind of moving that way forward, because we're at this exciting time of having just, shipped our first game, and having taken that experience, like, what is that second game going to look like, having established already an audience and a people and a voice within this space as a whole?